You're in a room filled with laughter. Everyone smiles, everyone plays nice, but behind one of those faces is a decision. A quiet one, a calculated one. They're deciding whether you are useful or disposable. You think they see your kindness, your loyalty, your sincerity. But they don't. They see the cracks, the hunger, the places where you need something. That's where the blade goes. Because here's the truth no one dares teach you. The moment you show what you need, you offer someone a weapon. We live in a world that claims to reward vulnerability. But Machiavelli never trusted such illusions. He saw the world for what it was, a theater of masks, ambition, and control. And in that theater, he learned the most brutal rule of all. He who controls perception controls power. The ones who survive, who thrive, aren't the loudest, the strongest, or even the smartest. They're the ones who are unreadable. The ones you can't manipulate because you don't know what they want. The ones who've trained themselves to need nothing in public. Let me ask you something. Have you ever begged for love? Not with words, but with your silence, your sacrifices, your second chances. Have you ever stayed when you should have walked away, just to feel wanted for a moment longer? And what happened when they saw it? When they realized you needed them more than they needed you? They didn't get closer, they pulled away, not because they were evil, but because humans are predators of need. We chase what resists us, and we toy with what submits. Someone once told everything, their fears, their secrets, their hopes, to a person they trusted. They thought honesty would build a bridge. Instead, it marked a target. Weeks later, when the fight came, every secret was used like ammunition. You've felt this, haven't you? That sting when your honesty was used not to hold you, but to hurt you. That moment when what you shared in truth became the very thing that crushed you. It's not your fault. You were taught that honesty was safe, that love meant exposure, that connection required sacrifice. But Machiavelli whispers another truth. Never show what you need most, because once they know it, they will shape you with it. Bend you, threaten you, control you, or worse, discard you once they've extracted it. So what's the alternative? Coldness, isolation, emotional exile? It's strategy. It's mastering the art of silence, not from fear, but from understanding. And that's what this video is about. The one rule that doesn't just protect you, it frees you, not from pain, but from becoming someone else's puppet. So if you've ever trusted the wrong person, if you've ever been broken by your own openness, if you've ever wondered why the more you gave, the less you were valued, keep watching, because this rule changes everything, and it begins with unlearning everything they told you about being real. Welcome to Psychra. Need is a signal, but not always to the universe. Sometimes it's a signal to your enemies. In the wild, an injured animal limps. The scent of blood travels fast. In the human world, that blood is emotional, a need for love, for attention, for approval. And the predators aren't wolves. They're the people you think care. You crave recognition. Your boss sees it. So he offers just enough praise to keep you chasing, but never enough to make you whole. You're stuck, working harder, saying yes when you should walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're tethered to the hope that this time he'll see your worth. You fear abandonment? Your friend senses it. They know that if they go silent for 2 days, you'll break first. You'll call, you'll apologize, even when you did nothing wrong, and they'll win. Not with force, but with absence. You're afraid to be alone. Your partner reads it like a manual. They don't even need to argue anymore. They just withdraw. And your mind does the rest. It writes their excuses. It forgives their silence. It tolerates their neglect. Why? Because the fear of being alone is louder than the reality of being mistreated. This is the architecture of manipulation. Not control through domination, but control through insight, through knowing exactly what you need and becoming the gatekeeper to it. Machiavelli warned rulers against this mistake. Not only should you never expose your weaknesses to your enemies, you should never depend on your allies, because today's alliance is tomorrow's leverage. He wrote, "The wise prince builds fortresses, not of stone, but of silence." And what is silence in this sense? It's not the absence of speech. It's the absence of signals, no obvious hunger, no emotional tells, no broadcast of what matters most to you, because once they know it, they'll own you. This is why the emotionally transparent are the easiest to break. They hand over the blueprint to their soul and wonder why it's used against them. They believe understanding leads to intimacy. But in Machiavelli's world, and ours, understanding leads to strategy. What they can see, they can shape. What they can predict, they can control. But what they can't read, that terrifies them. This brings us to the behavioral law of this section, and perhaps the entire video. What they can't see, they can't use. It sounds simple, but think about it. How often do you volunteer your emotional truths, hoping it will earn you connection? How many times have you said, "I just need to be understood," only to be managed, not met? A locked vault is never looted, but a door left ajar invites invasion. This doesn't mean you become emotionally frozen. It means you become emotionally disciplined. It means knowing that your feelings are sacred, and exposure is earned, not assumed. In the power games of life, in workplaces, relationships, and social hierarchies, the one who needs least is the one who controls most. Let's go deeper. What does status truly mean? Status isn't measured by what you have. It's measured by what you can withhold. Can you withhold your reactions, your need for clarification, your urge to correct false narratives about yourself? Because the moment you can't, you become predictable. And predictable people are manipulatable. This is why those who master their emotional hunger seem untouchable. They walk through storms without signaling distress. They love, but don't beg. They speak, but never explain. They vanish, and no one knows whether it was strategy or indifference. That's power, not the power of intimidation, but the power of opacity. And yet, this path has a cost. You lose the cheap comforts of quick connection. You surrender the illusion of safety and oversharing. But in return, you gain something rarer: self-possession, inner sovereignty, a presence so self-contained that others orbit around it, trying to guess where you stand, what you want, whether they even matter. And all the while, you watch. You see how they move when they can't read you. You learn who they become when they can't play you, because without access to your needs, they have no script. But if hiding your need protects you, what happens when you learn to weaponize it? You've seen it before. Someone walks into a room and suddenly the energy shifts. Not because they're loud, not because they demand attention, but because no one knows what they're thinking. Their eyes betray nothing. Their smile reveals nothing. You can't tell whether they like you, despise you, or don't even notice you. And that mystery, that emotional silence, becomes power. Because here's the truth. The more people know what you need, the easier it is to hurt you. And so, the rule: master emotional invisibility. This is not about being cold. It's not about numbing yourself or faking disinterest. It's not about becoming robotic. It's about becoming unreadable, strategically opaque. You're not hiding who you are. You're choosing what version of yourself gets revealed and when. You're controlling what others see, and more importantly, what they think they see. Because humans don't prey on strength, they prey on need. And if you want to be untouchable, your emotional levers, your cravings, your triggers, your weaknesses, must be hidden in the fog. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Someone asks you, "Are you upset?" The average person rushes to respond, "No, I'm fine," or "Yes, because you didn't reply." But the emotionally invisible person, they pause. They say, "I don't know yet." And that pause, that's power. That's the delay response strategy, refusing to give immediate emotional data. Because immediacy is vulnerability. Or maybe someone asks, "What do you want from me?" You don't say, "I need you to care," or "I want loyalty." Instead, you say, I observe how people behave. That tells me everything I need. That's need reversal reframing, turning emotional hunger into cool observation. You stop reaching, you start watching, you stop hoping, you start filtering. This isn't a trick. It's not manipulation. It's emotional sovereignty. The ability to sit in your own silence without needing the world to echo back validation. Think of it like this. You're a vault. Most people walk around with their safes wide open. Every fear on display. Every insecurity shouted through body language. Every need leaking through the cracks. But not you. You've sealed the vault. You don't chase validation. You don't explain yourself to be accepted. You don't reveal your wounds to people who haven't earned that level of intimacy. Because here's the reality. Silence is the highest form of strength. When you're emotionally invisible, people can't guilt trip you. People can't mirror you just to manipulate you. People can't predict you. And what can't be predicted can't be controlled. This flips the entire power dynamic. Instead of being readable and reactive, you become neutral. And neutrality terrifies people because they can't tell if they're winning. And in that quiet, something strange happens. They lean in. They start chasing you. They want to know what you think. They want to feel something from you. Because mystery feeds obsession. You become the question they can't answer. The code they can't crack. The mirror that reflects nothing back. And yet somehow shows them who they are. And now, because they can't predict you, they respect you. Because they can't read you, they follow you. Because they can't own your emotions, you finally own your life. You might be wondering, but if I hide my needs, will anyone still care? Will anyone still connect with me? It's a good question, and here's the answer. Yes, but only the right ones. You're not pushing people away. You're filtering. Those who require you to bleed so they feel close to you, they're not for you. Those who need to hear you beg so they'll finally show up. They're parasites. But those who sense your stillness and still stay, those are allies. Those are equals. Those are rare. And now, if you've made it this far, I have a question. Are you the kind of person who overshares? Do you find yourself explaining, over-explaining, defending your worth, exposing your heart to people who haven't earned your trust? Or are you learning to walk that razor's edge? Are you learning to say less and reveal less, not out of fear, but out of mastery? If that's you, don't tell anyone. Just drop a symbol in the comments. Lock the rest won't know what it means, but we will. And the more of us that appear, the stronger the signal becomes. Not noise, not shouting, just presence, just awareness, just control. But before we move forward, ask yourself this. If emotional invisibility protects you from exploitation, what happens when you use that same power to exploit others? What if silence wasn't just a shield, but a weapon? Because up until now, you've learned how to stop being prey. But next, we'll explore how to become the predator. And it begins when they trust you the most. There was a time when manipulation required proximity. Eye contact, whispers, the tug of a facial expression or the flicker of a reaction. But now, it only takes a scroll. We live in an empire built on visibility. A surveillance state, not imposed by governments, but volunteered by the people. Your needs, your insecurities, your desperation for connection are all wrapped in pixels and served to a global audience. Not because someone forced you, but because no one taught you what need truly costs. Look at the average social media feed. It is not a record of lives. It's a showcase of psychological levers. Someone posts a gym selfie, not to document progress, but to say, "Am I enough now?" A vague, sad caption that reads, "Some people just change," is not a statement, it's a test. A baited hook cast into the void, hoping someone bites, hoping someone asks, "Are you okay?" That moment you double-texted after being ignored. That story you rewatched to see if they noticed. That quote you posted hoping it would sting just the right person. You think you're using the platform, but the platform is using you. Because each post, each seen message, each carefully curated narrative isn't harmless expression. It's a confession, a blueprint of your soul's vulnerabilities. Your timeline is a map of your emotional pressure points, and maps are made to be exploited. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you are, the easier it is to control you. Machiavelli never lived to see a smartphone, but he understood the essence of power better than the engineers who built it. He would have looked at your social media presence and said, "You are feeding your enemies." Understand this. When you post about your heartbreak, you are not just expressing pain, you are offering ammunition. When you chronicle your loneliness, your victories, your cravings for attention or recognition, you're letting the world know where to push, where to strike, and how to pull you like a marionette. Nowhere is need more visible than online, and nothing gets punished faster than emotional honesty in the wrong arena. Let's walk through the digital theater of manipulation. A friend sees your fear of being left behind. They watch your stories, never reply, then suddenly comment on your post just when they sense you pulling away. Reinforcement, hook, control. A partner notes how you post song lyrics after every argument. They now know when you're hurt. They learn how long it takes you to break the silence. They can predict your return before you decide it. A stranger sees your desperation for validation through likes, shares, and story engagement. They understand they don't need to be kind, just consistent. You'll chase the one who notices, even if they're poison. All of this, volunteered. No interrogation required. Just visibility. And here's the truth they'll never teach you. The internet is a psychological battlefield, and you're bleeding out in plain sight. But now, imagine something different. Imagine being unreadable, the one person who doesn't post heartbreak, who doesn't share inner turmoil, who doesn't post to be seen, but watches to understand. You post rarely. When you do, it reveals nothing. You respond late, briefly, never with emotional urgency. You become the digital void, the question mark in a world full of exclamation points. And suddenly the game flips. People become curious. They try to figure you out. They wonder what you're thinking, feeling, needing. But you give them nothing. Your absence becomes your presence. Your silence becomes your dominance. Invisibility in this digital arena is not obscurity. It is sovereignty. Because when you stop performing for attention and start observing for understanding, something happens. You begin to see everything. You notice who posts only when lonely, who baits sympathy for control, who uses aesthetic pain as emotional currency. You step out of the spotlight and into the shadows. From there, you don't just protect your psyche. You gain vision, power. Machiavelli would have called this strategic ambiguity, a ruler who reveals nothing but knows everything, because the real power is not to be known. It is to watch others reveal themselves while you remain untouched. And this is why the rule matters more now than ever, because in a world addicted to exposure, the invisible become gods. But the question remains, if you become unreadable, truly unreadable, what happens to those closest to you? Will they feel intimacy or distance? Will you build safety or silence? Because the moment you vanish from the emotional radar of others, one of two things happens. They chase you, or they fear you. And that's where we go next. Silence. Not the awkward kind that fills rooms with tension, but the kind that commands the room, that disturbs the insecure and elevates the composed. It's here, in this stillness, that Machiavelli's darkest truth reveals itself. The one who reveals nothing eventually controls everything. You see, most people live in emotional chaos. They speak before thinking. They text before breathing. They rush to explain their pain, their intentions, their love, all in hopes that someone will understand them, accept them, complete them. But here's the truth. Completion doesn't come from being understood. It comes from becoming unreadable. This is the transformation point. The moment when the rule you've been learning stops being a shield and becomes a sword. The power of omission. When you reveal nothing, people are forced to project. And projection is powerful, because people don't see you for who you are. They see you for who they fear you might be. In meetings, you speak less, but they lean in more. Why? Because silence creates anticipation, and anticipation, in the minds of the reactive, becomes anxiety. When you speak sparingly, every word becomes a signal. Every glance becomes a move. You are no longer a participant in the emotional arena. You are the architect of it. This is the birth of power, when your stillness shapes their storms. Stillness in relationships. Consider the emotional dynamics in relationships. Most are built on performance and reaction. You show love, they mirror it. You beg for closeness, they pull away. But what happens when you don't chase? When you don't ask for love, don't explain your wounds, don't flinch at distance. You create emotional gravity. They feel the pull. Not because you're cold, but because you're sovereign. Your emotional weather doesn't change with their approval. You're not manipulating, you're just not leaking. And in a world of leaks, containment is mistaken for mystery, and mystery becomes magnetism. The mechanics of stillness. Stillness isn't passivity, it's strategy. It's the conscious decision to respond from control, not compulsion. And that kind of presence, the kind that doesn't need to be seen, is unbearable for those addicted to attention. But to cultivate this, you need more than silence. You need inner discipline. Here's how you build it. 1. Emotional sovereignty. Detach your emotional reactions from external outcomes. When someone compliments you, accept it without dependence. When someone insults you, observe it without defense. Both are feedback, not instruction manuals for your worth. 2. Delayed reaction technique. Pause before every emotionally charged response. A question comes, why haven't you texted back? Your instinct screams, defend yourself, justify. But stillness says, wait. Every pause is a reminder, I respond on my time, not yours. 3. Non-reactivity training. Expose yourself to triggers without flinching. Start with small things. Don't comment on every online argument. Don't answer every call immediately. Don't react to every jab. The more you train yourself not to respond, the more power you gain over those who can't help but do so. The psychological ripple effect. Once you master stillness, you'll notice something eerie. People become unsettled around you. They'll ask, are you upset with me? Why are you so calm? Are you even interested? That's the game turning. They're no longer trying to control you. They're trying to decode you. And that decoding process is where your influence begins. Because when people can't predict your next move, they become captive to their own curiosity. Their energy flows toward you. Their attention, their obsession, their interpretation, all orbit around your stillness. You've become emotionally invisible. Not numb, just untraceable. Not detached, just ungovernable. Real-world manifestations of the untouchable presence. This isn't theory. It shows up in the real world. In business, the CEO who speaks last in the room, yet every decision bends to their tone. Why? Because power isn't rushed, it's anchored. In dating, the person who doesn't constantly chase, who doesn't need to prove anything, suddenly becomes the one others pursue. Why? Because need repels, self-containment seduces. In conflict, the individual who doesn't raise their voice, doesn't defend themselves, doesn't retaliate, they win. Why? Because power isn't volume, it's presence. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. It means never revealing whether you're planning action, and that alone reshapes the battlefield. Absence as dominance. Here's the paradox Machiavelli would smile at. The most powerful move is often disappearance. To vanish from a dynamic, from a fight, from an emotional loop, without warning, without closure, is to force the other person into a confrontation with their own insecurities. You didn't scream, you didn't explain, you simply exited. And in that silence, they begin to hear their own madness. Your absence becomes a mirror, and if you've built your stillness correctly, that mirror terrifies them. The final truth. Let's bring this full circle. Most people believe power is about having followers, having influence, having control. But real power is about not needing attention, not needing validation, not needing to be known. The one who reveals nothing commands everything. The one who disappears rewrites the narrative. Stillness is not just a personal tool. It is a social weapon. It's how you reclaim control in a world of exposure. It's how you end emotional warfare without firing a shot. It's how you become untouchable. So ask yourself, will you keep playing the game, or will you step outside of it entirely and watch the game revolve around you? Because in the end, the rule isn't just to hide your needs. It's to become the kind of person who no longer has them. So here we are. You've walked through the fire, stripped bare of illusion, and now you stand at the final ledge, no longer asking what to hide, but what it costs to be seen. Everything they ever used against you, your hunger for love, your need for approval, your longing to be chosen, it's now lying silent behind locked walls. Not destroyed, just invisible. We return to the opening idea, but now you've become the inversion of it. You're not the one on stage anymore. You're not the one performing for applause, stretching out your soul in digital confessions, offering pieces of yourself in the hope someone calls it connection. You are the watcher now, the observer, the silhouette in the crowd who says nothing and is therefore known by no one. This is the paradox of presence. The less you reveal, the more they want to know. The more still you become, the louder your absence rings in their minds. The one who walks away first doesn't lose. They define the ending. You don't chase love now. You generate gravity. You don't demand attention. You become the silence people feel in your absence. It's not detachment out of fear. It's withdrawal from the game entirely. You don't play anymore. You study the board. And here's the haunting truth that Machiavelli always knew, and modern minds still resist. The less they know about your soul, the safer it stays. Because in a world of surveillance, performance, and manipulation, your inner world must become sacred. Not shared, not posted, not liked, not commented on. Protected. Some people will say this is loneliness, but it's not. Loneliness is needing someone to look inside you. Sovereignty is knowing no one ever truly can. So now let me ask you, quietly, as one of the invisible ones, what's one thing you used to need that you've now hidden? Is it love, recognition, revenge? Let it die. Or bury it so deep, no one knows where to dig. Not even you. Because the war was never about them taking it. It was about you giving it away. For free. Now don't explain anything in the comments. Just leave a trace. A symbol. A whisper. A sign that you're among the ones who finally understood. Subscribe. If you're done being used and you're ready to understand the game, like, to keep this truth circulating where others are still bleeding publicly. Comment. We read everything. The quiet ones always do. Share. Not everyone's ready for this, but some are. Find them. And as the silence closes in once more, let one final truth echo in your mind. Not loud, not proud, but still. And final, power belongs to the one who disappears first.